I follow organizations' effectiveness very carefully. I have done for decades. The Cressida Dick Metropolitan Police situation interests me in many levels, not least of which professional. And here are some issues I want to pull out around this. So the question is, as it says there, is Cressida Dick a martyr or is she a one-woman culture setter? I think the issue here is to what degree can one singular leader, rather than the collective leadership, both of the immediate leadership group at the top of the organization and all the way down, how do they conflict? How do they interact? Is one more responsible for the creation of culture than the other? I must admit, I'm coming down in favor of the collective over the individual. Let's see where this goes. So here's the next slide and see where this takes us. So what are the pros and cons of appointing from within to a top job when the culture is felt to be toxic? The culture was not sound when Cressida Dick, for instance, this isn't all about Cressida Dick, by the way. This could be any incoming chief executive of any sized organization, and it's particularly relevant when the organization is high profile, is very large scale and complex, because that's where different cultures exist, and it's hard to create a singular way of doing anything. So I'm not going to answer that question. I'm just going to put it out there. What are the pros and cons of appointing from within to a top job with someone who has to some degree borne some responsibility for how things have been and are up to that point? That's the issue, really. Can you shed that skin and say, hey, I was one of you and I sort of looked the other way when some things happened or didn't confront things, and now I'm going to be different? Or I don't know what happens. I wasn't in the room. But these are issues. There is a case for not just one new broom, but for maybe a whole cupboard full. There's a thought. So what special and rare qualities and skills? It takes a special person, or at least a person who shows themselves the first time, perhaps, to be special, to blossom in a new role from within, to take on this role of clearing house. And what are the absolute first week priorities for the new leader? Well, I've got views on that, and they go around getting people together like this. So the new commissioner or anyone else into a new role of running an organization gathers the senior team together and says, right, where do we go from here? This is a crucial meeting, or this is a crucial time, isn't it? However it's gone about, because what is done in that first week or two, first few days, will set the clock running in terms of how well or otherwise the process of changing the organization for the better will go. 8 questions, here they come. I'm going to keep this fairly tight. I'm going to read them out. How, very specifically, do you want this organization to be described in 3 years' time? I've chosen those words carefully-ish. And it's about not just let's put words on a flip chart. It is about very specific descriptions of observations. What are people going to see by who does what in this organization in 3 years' time? I've just chosen that arbitrarily. 5 years is too long. 1 year is too soon. I chose 3. And it's about saying, not just how do we intend to change, but what are going to be the indications of that at behavioral level. Now, this one is important too. What do you want to see as clear organization-wide observable indications of the new way of working? I've kind of gone in there already. How are we going to see this operating? What are the behavioral indications of it? Now then, this is where we get a bit more personal. What very specifically are the most significant reasons for the current unacceptable culture? Maybe it's been discussed before, maybe it hasn't. It's important to get a view from the people around the table who have been the creators of the current culture. Let's be straight, that's what's happened here. And what is actually going on? What has caused this to happen? How ready, how prepared, how capable are people around a senior table to take responsibility collectively for what hasn't gone well? And number 4 gets personal. What personal responsibility do you accept for the creation and maintenance of the current position? Hey, this doesn't happen randomly. This happened for a reason. People around a senior table allowed a situation to evolve and didn't take the actions which might have stopped it growing and festering and embedding. So I think it's important that people around the table say, hey, I have not done this. I did this. And maybe to gauge also those people who find that so difficult as to be an impossibility. Well, it's not down to me. Well, I've seen you do this, but me? Oh, well, I don't know. Can't think of anything. What do you do with someone who isn't prepared to take personal responsibility for a role, at least, in creating a culture which is toxic? That'll be an interesting question to answer. 5, what factors beyond the control of anyone in this room influence the culture, and what impact does this have? Let's be fair. It's not all about the organization, whichever it is, and what it's done or not done. There are external factors. It will be interesting also to gauge, is there overemphasis on this? Well, there's politicians, in the case of the Met, there's the public, there's stakeholders, there's blah, 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 there's local authorities. It's a heck of a long list. It's not an easy job to do. Come on, let's be straight about that. The degree to which a senior management team are unprepared to look other than outside for influences on culture will be interesting. How much balance will there be between this we can't control and this we can? Number 6 question, there's only 8. What will you personally do to contribute significantly to the new culture? Significantly is the word there. Not just, oh, well, I'll do this, I'll do that. Okay, go further. What precisely will that involve doing? How will that be different to what you've done before? I could go on further in all of these. They deserve, in a sense, wider unraveling, but not just now. What are those significant problems we as a collective senior management team or leadership team will need to confront? Let's look ahead and say what's coming our way. Some of that will be today, tomorrow, this week. Others will be down the track. What are the most significant problems we as a collective senior leadership team will need to confront? I suspect some of that, if they're prepared to admit it, are going to be around themselves, how they work, how they support each other, how they make the best of the talents in the room. And then the catch-all, number 8, what else needs to be said at this time? Quite a lot, but that have had a hard time getting to that point. So I hope that's of interest. I really do. I'm going to keep pushing these out on topical issues. And I've got various places that more on what I push out there, most of which is for free, can be found both on websites, podcasts, and YouTube channels. I hope that gives some food for thought. I thoroughly enjoyed putting it together, and as ever, I learned things from doing so.